and so this is how we make it up. And I was like, I completely understand that. I get it, but you can't do that. Like, there's no way. And Greg and I were really adamant about it, just because, we said, let us see if we can make up the sales another way. Like, if you're losing money, then let us promote the book. I'll call retailers then and say, listen, I can't tell you what this story's about, but it's a big one, and don't under order on it and that stuff. And so that's what I did. I went into DC and I called 100 stores or whatever it was. I don't know. And I spent the day at DC calling the stores and on the final order, and that was the compromise, for lowering the price. But yeah, it was definitely a fight. But and they were good about it, though, is the point.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't. I just want to put it in context for people, because I think that stuff sometimes it seems very black and white, like the big greedy corporation, and
right,
and we like that. That's what we want, is we don't, people, like you said, they see black and white. That's what we love, is the truth to be out there, both sides of the story, because the truth's in the middle.
Yeah, it is, and I mean, it's wrong to raise the price, and we were very proud that we were able to convince them or argue them back from that, but I do sympathize in the way that I feel like I'm like this big headache to them sometimes, in the way that I'm like, I don't want to promote it as Joker, and I don't want to do this, and they're going to take a hit, and I want to keep it secret, and that's a headache, because you have to think of all the coverage they have to solicit ahead of time and then hide and do a fake cover, fake solicits, and so there's like there's just so much machinery that I don't think about a lot of the time. I just think about the story, and Greg and I, think about the story, and that's a lot of people's jobs. And you think about it, and you're like, because I mean, that's the thing. Like, if the book doesn't, if it's promoted poorly, like, let's say they don't say it's Joker, right, and then it goes, and retailers under order on it. And for us, the readers, it's all fun. It's like, oh, guess what? It's a big surprise. It's Joker. But for them, they just got fucked on their, on money they need for their stores, because they didn't know it was something to order that big, and now they have to re-up, and they don't have the copies, and people could go buy them digitally instead, So there are all these things that there's this math to it that's I don't think about at all, and so not to go on too long about it, I just mean, it was something I was real proud that we were able to do, but I don't want to paint us as like, the underdog heroes, and they were evil, greedy people, because it was just, it was just everybody trying to do something to make the book as strong as possible, and they did the right thing ultimately.
Yeah.
And I think you were so right on that, dude. That moment, I remember reading that moment and just my jaw just dropped at the moment. I don't want to ruin it for anybody who hasn't read it yet, but there's a moment that my jaw just dropped when I turned that page and saw what was going on. I thought, and it shows Batman's fallible. I mean, he missed the ball on this. The guy was right next to him all this time.
Yeah, and I get worried that I make him too vulnerable sometimes, but the thing that I love about our version of him, it's sort of so opposed to Grant's, and Grant's is probably one of my 3 favorites, so it's odd to be, Grant's is like the super everything, and mine is like this constantly fumbling. But I think the thing that I love about him is that he's the symbol of inspiration, and the sense of getting up from failure constantly, and this just almost like just this incredible determination that it's not that he's so infallible and that he can get everything right all the time, or he doesn't screw up, but that he will never quit. And in that way, to me, he was always inspiring as a kid, when it came to, I was a very anxious kid, very nervous kid. I'm still very anxious and nervous, but that sense of being unafraid, and that sense of knowing that you can overcome, as corny as it sounds, you overcome your own fears, your own trepidation about things. That to me was always Batman. So it's okay. I don't mind him screwing up right and left, as long as he gets up again. So yeah, but I was sure it was going to leak. That was the thing. I was positive that it was going to leak, because it was in place for a long time. I mean, Endgame, I started writing Endgame when I was writing Death of the Family. So for me, it was a secret internally that we were going to do another Joker story for a while, but then it wasn't. It became something everybody knew about by summer of last year. So then it became like, is someone going to leak it? You know, is it going to get out? And I was sure it was. I had this whole strategy in mind where I was like, if it does, and someone, you know, gets on a website and they're like, oh, you know, they're doing the Joker again, how I would respond and how I would pretend it wasn't. And I didn't, you know, we had all these, I was just positive it wouldn't make it. And then as we got closer, I was like, I can't believe this is actually going to stay secret, you know? So, and then it's been great. I mean, we have the stuff we're doing in June is pretty wacky as well. So I'm very happy that hasn't been spoiled yet either.
I haven't heard anything, and I didn't hear anything about this either. It took me totally by surprise. So it worked.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's a fun story. It's so funny because it's odd to be moving past it at this point where it really was sort of originally designed to be our last thing, you know, on the book, and then to move past it and know that there's this whole sort of at least one more year of stuff that we're going to get to do is it's a good feeling. It's just a strange feeling too. I know. I mean, I never thought I'd write Batman more than 1 year. Not because I didn't want to, but just because I thought did not think that I'd get to. You know, I thought that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if this was going to be your end game. I mean, do you have a new end game now? I mean, not that you're going to tell us what it is, but I mean, do you just plan on figuring that out when you get to the end of where you want to be?
No, I have one more. It's kind of become this like. Now I'll tell you. I'll talk to you like maybe I'm saying too much, but I've always been sort of, you know, I've never wanted to stay on the character past when I felt like I was doing a story that could potentially be our best one, you know, in the way that I feel like knowing a bunch of writers now, everybody has a Batman story they want to tell, and it's a disservice to the character and to the fans to try and stay on and do stuff just to get to say I write Batman, which is a huge thrill to go to your kid's school. And it's because it's so translatable when you're like, I write comics, and they're like, oh, what comics do you write? And you're like, oh, I write American Vampire, it's a horror comic, or I write Wytches, but when you're like, I write Batman, they all know exactly what that
definitely. That's the big.
So it's fun. They think that you write the little bubbles. They're very funny. They're like, you write the little balloons and write POW in them and stuff like that. That's my job. But but the thing. So for me with Endgame, I mean. When I did Detective, I was sure that was going to be it. I thought that people might not like the James Jr. stuff. They might think it was too bleak. And initially DC said it was too bleak and said I couldn't do it. And then I was not going to do the book. And then they turned around, and Dan actually, who I know, you know, some people have issues with, but for me, Dan was DiDio was the person that was like, give this guy a chance, let him do that stupid story, you know. And I was like, okay. And so they gave me a shot with it, but I was sure you know, some people told me that it was going to be the end of my career because it was going to be too dark, and you know, people wouldn't like that he had a son that, you know, would make him a failure and all that kind of stuff. And so I thought maybe that'd be it. And then with Court of Owls, I was pretty sure at the end I thought maybe I'd get run off the book for having, you know, giving him a possible brother. And I just thought, I mean, because the thing is, like, you lock into a story for 11 issues, you know, and it's scary because what if people hate it and then you're stuck there for a year? I mean, there's no way out of it once you go on that path, you know. It's like you're there. I mean, and Zero Year was the most. Zero Year was where I had a real anxiety attack. I mean, for a long time, for a month or two, where it was really, really bad. I mean, it's always really scary, but that one, because I knew it was going to be really unpopular, like the idea of doing the origin, but DC wanted it on the one hand, and I just thought it was the best. I wanted to do it before I left the book because I knew if I didn't do it, they'd let somebody else do it because they needed a new Batman origin. And my feeling was, it would be the greatest, you know, the greatest thrill in my career as a comic writer, probably, to get to do an origin that was written for my kids. Like the things that I see them afraid of and that I'm afraid of for them. The way as a kid growing up in New York, I mean, year one was very poignant, you know. All that stuff, you know, Times Square was like that, and like Gotham, and you know, all of those things. Batman was real, and the things he was facing in Dark Knight Returns, even though, you know, that city was futuristic in Gotham, it still felt real. The Cold War and the threat of nuclear annihilation, and you know, all of it was. So to get to do that and try and do a story that had, you know, the Red Hood gang as a stand-in for random violence, and gunmen, and Riddler as a stand-in for terrorism, and superstorms and blackouts and resource depletion, all the kind of stuff that, I feel like my kids, it's like in the zeitgeist for that, and make it about anxiety and depression and stuff too. I knew I wanted to do it really badly, but I knew it was going to be like, it gets announced and then people are like, you're doing the origin, I'm dropping the book, 11 issues, it's just going to be like the pearls in the alley, for 11 issues, this is going to be awful. And so it got really yelled at then, and that was pretty rough, But I guess what I'm getting at, in my incredibly circuitous way, and I apologize for rambling. No, I'm sorry. I'm getting all like waxing nostalgic now about like our own run.
Please do.
Well, I was gonna ask if Panda feels that way, because Panda just recently moved to New York.
Yeah, I'm now a New Yorker.
It's nice. Well, it's so different. I mean, when I was a kid, you couldn't go to Times Square. It was like Taxi Driver. It was all porn theaters, and it was all, prostitutes, and you couldn't really ride the subway as a kid because it was like, graffiti everywhere, and you couldn't go to Central Park at night. Any of that stuff was, it's really different than it was when I was a kid in that way. But
yeah, I've heard like during the transition period, like Times Square was like a really interesting place because you had like family-friendly stuff right next to like adult entertainment.
Yeah, it was a really bizarre thing. And, we would go there to get fake IDs, and we always went to this place called Playlands. I still remember that was like an arcade right on Broadway, and it was like a rite of passage. You got flashed there by somebody at some point. We all just got flashed. No, I think the thing I was getting at with all this was just that each time has been really scary, but each time has also been like, if this is the last thing we do, that's okay, because each one is supposed to be, for me at least, like, if I only got one chance to write Batman, this is the story I would tell at this point. And so, Zero Year, and finishing Zero Year and having it be what it is, and having gone over as well as it did and all that stuff, to me, that's nothing will really cap that. So at this point, it's kind of like, let's just have, like, Endgame was, meant to be sort of a celebration and a goodbye. And then after that, now we're in this territory where I'm like, we have, because I thought of this thing that I think is our most, and it sounds, I'm not promoting it, I swear, this is just the truth, I think is our most daring thing after Endgame, where it's really, really out there. But it's something that I feel really strongly will give me a chance to get angles on the characters that I would never get to have otherwise, and explore them in ways that people haven't tried yet. And in that way, I feel like it has the potential to be our best thing, or one of our best things. And so I got real excited. I was like, okay, I'll stay for a year. And plus, there's also internal stuff. Like, and again, I don't know if this is Borat. Please just tell me to stop if this is
No. But as a matter of fact, I was going to tell you that I think, from Court of Owls to Death of the Family to Zero Year to now Endgame, I think you and Capullo are spot on with Batman.
Thank you.
I've loved every issue that you put out, and I just, not to get too gushy on you or anything, or too fanboyish, but I gotta say, no, you've hit me right where I live with Batman, and I think it's great. And I was going to ask you, like, after all these, and everybody that I know seems to love like all these arcs that you've done, and have you ever just turned to like Greg Capullo and been like, can you fucking believe how awesome our Batman is?
We talk, we joke all the time. Like, I'll show you my phone. Like, actually, we are doing audio, not video, so it won't help. But just the other day, we were texting back and forth, like, about how crazy it is that we're this long on the book and that it's gone this well. And because there were times we both thought, look, I'm not gonna lie. There are times where we both thought maybe we should quit while we're ahead and go to Marvel, or that kind of thing. A while ago, after Court of Owls and times like that. And the reason that we didn't was because, for me, I felt like the best stories that I had, and the character he wanted to draw the most, was still Batman. And, I really, really feel strongly that the zeitgeist has changed in comics tremendously from just 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, where the difference to me, and tell me if you disagree, because maybe I'm wrong about this, but